Meta Revelations Ring Spirits is probably one of the best examples of a good game that is buried under poor combat balancing and design issues. On one hand, we have a rich world with an exhaustive amount of lore, one you uncover both as you go through the story and through books you can read peppered throughout the explorable areas. It also has amazing character designs. I mean, honestly, some of the best I've seen in just about any video game. I love them. The story is also very interesting and has some cool twists and turns throughout. Not to mention, this is probably one of the only RPG Maker games I've ever seen with voice acting. But, on the other hand, the game suffers from some pacing, a lot of combat balance issues, and inconsistent sound production. To me, it became frustrating to play because of the combat, but the story and the world Blackwing Games created, you guys know me. I am really quite forgiving of poor design or combat balance if the story is strong enough. This game had a strong story, but I feel it really tested the limits of my patience. At its heart, Ring Spirits is a labor of love. You can instantly tell from the story and the designs of the characters and monsters. It's also a warning of what can happen with a single developer. Without exhaustive testing and retesting from multiple people throughout the entire length of the game, a lot of important things can be overlooked. This causes a very frustrating play experience and makes the game somewhat more of a chore than enjoyable. And I know it could have been much more enjoyable. The artistic design of the game is top-notch. I loved how the characters and the monsters and the Deva, the godlike creatures, I loved how it all looked. Very well done. It's also got a pretty good story that avoided most of the more common tropes of RPG Maker games, but there were a few pacing issues. The game has voice acting. I mean, hell, I even play a role. The debuffs in Meta Revelations Ring Spirits are tied to the elemental attacks. Basically, damaging magic also has a chance to apply a certain debuff, depending on the type of element used. I thought this was very clever until I started to use it. The system can be frustrating in that if an enemy is strong to a certain element that you need to use to apply a debuff, say the earth lowers armor. You need that so your melee characters can actually damage a certain enemy. Problem is, they're strong against it so that they're healed by it. You get where I'm going with this. The quest log, it has one, but it can be very vague at times. I would not really have much direction, and the quest log wasn't a big help at all, especially when I really needed it. Aside from the combat not really feeling that balanced, there was pitifully low experience gains for battles for almost the entire game. It wasn't until I was in the final dungeon that I was getting some more significant gains. It made grinding throughout the game feel like more of a chore than normal, and almost next to pointless. In fact, it made me want to avoid fights at any cost because what was the point? Bosses were the only ones that gave real experience. The maps felt a bit too large, even with fast travel. It was kind of easy to get lost, and with the maps as large as they were, you were basically wandering around looking for that little arrow that said, hey, you can go on to this next area. The sound design needs a lot of work. Often certain voice files were played at the wrong time, or they were far too quiet and were drowned out by the music track that was playing at the same time. Well, do I recommend Meta Revelations Ring Spirits? I won't sugarcoat this. The game has major issues. Combat, sound design, even some parts of the plot and pacing. But even with all those issues and frustration I experienced, I know that this was all from someone who believed in a story. Someone who wanted the story out there so much, they offered the game for free on Steam. I respect the hell out of that, and what they've accomplished. Get it and give it a try. You really don't have anything to lose, honestly. And hey, if I could beat it, anyone with a little patience and perseverance certainly could as well. I'm HawkZombie. Thanks for listening.